Clearwater Conservancy has been committed to conserving and restoring the natural resources of Center County and beyond for more than 40 years. In 2022, we purchased 10 acres on Spring Creek in Hauserville. We have a 20-year relationship with this land, having restored the streamside forested buffer in 2004. This property, in the heart of the Spring Creek watershed, is the site of our new permanent home and our local conservation, restoration, and education programs. The public will be welcome to explore the stream, as well as use the community meeting room for partnerships and collaboration. Clearwater's dedicated volunteers will see firsthand the positive impact of their efforts. Your support ensures that our conservation work thrives, protecting our natural resources for everyone. As an accredited land trust, we promise that residents will enjoy clean water and natural areas for many years to come. Your support is essential in preserving our natural resources for future generations. Visit clearwaterconservancy.org to learn how you can get involved.
Give thanks for literacy. Literacy means a life of increased safety, achievements, and community participation. For more than 50 years, Mid-State Literacy Council has empowered thousands of residents with literacy skills, improving their families' lives. Literacy builds our community. Help us celebrate literacy and support Mid-State Literacy Council by volunteering or donating to our Give Thanks for Literacy campaign, www.mid-stateliteracycouncil.org.
You're watching CNET, Center County's Government and Educational Access Network.
Right, I'll call to order the Board of Supervisors special meeting on the CIP for Thursday, June 26, 2025 to order. Please rise as you're able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. And at this time, I will hand everything over to recognize the Assistant Township Manager to call the meeting procedures and the roll.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the members of the board, staff, and the public for joining us this evening for the June 26th Board of Supervisors special meeting number 2 to review the 2026-2030 Ferguson Township Capital Improvement Plan. This meeting has been properly advertised in accordance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act as a hybrid meeting with the option to attend virtually and in person here in the main meeting room. If you are in attendance virtually using the WebEx platform and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please say your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on when the chair calls on you. If you are attending in person with us in the main meeting room and wish to speak on behalf of an agenda item, please address the board at the podium and state your name, municipality of residence, and the topic you wish to speak on. Members of the public attending using the WebEx platform are asked to remain muted during the meeting to prevent any ambient noise from disrupting the meeting. If a member of the public is acknowledged by the chair, they may unmute their microphone for a question or comment. Secondly, board members are asked to indicate their name when motioning or seconding a motion so that the minutes may accurately reflect the action taken. Finally, a roll call of the Board of Supervisors will now be taken to ensure that all members can hear and interact using the WebEx meeting platform. Please indicate that you are here when your name is called. Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Patterson.
Here.
Mr. Heller. Here. Ms. Strickland.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. This evening, subject to the call of the chair, I'm going to try to keep the meeting within 4 hours, but any member of the board can definitely propose to extend any limits of debate. So just letting you know, trying to keep it going.
Can we propose like an hour and a half?
Well, yeah, if you want to have a meeting, though, yeah, if you want to time limit the meeting to an hour and a half, let's go. All right. And yeah, so totally up to you. Next up, we have public comments. So I'm not seeing anyone online, so we'll go to public comment in the room, seeing none. That will move us to unfinished business, which there is none.
So new business, we have consent agenda with nothing on it tonight. So that will then move us to a public hearing on a resolution of the Township of Ferguson, Center County to approve the upon agreement between Ferguson Township and Pennsylvania State University. And at this time, I'll recognize the manager.
Thank you, Chair. Provided with the agenda is a resolution that highlights the key significant pieces of the memorandum of understanding that's been negotiated between Penn State University and Ferguson Township. Those negotiations began in November of 2023. Part of the negotiation team representing Ferguson Township was the township engineer, myself, and the township solicitor. And on the other side, Penn State, initially it was with General Counsel, Governmental Affairs Director, Jillian Morales. I believe that was it on their side. Negotiations concluded prior to the April 9th board meeting, where the board, you may recall, approved the term sheet. And those provisions that were included in the term sheet that were approved by the Board of Supervisors were transferred into what is presented to you this evening. I will remind the board that according to the township policy, as well as other Pennsylvania open records law, the exhibit is not provided. The exhibit is the memorandum of understanding between Penn State and Ferguson Township that's been negotiated. It's not considered a public document until it's been executed, which is why it's not currently part of the agenda. It is in front of you this evening. It's emailed to you for your review. Again, most of everything is transferred from what was already approved in the term sheet. There's one additional provision. Following conversations at the last board meeting where the board approved the term sheet, there was interest in what if we went out. And I was able to negotiate, our team was able to negotiate to get us an out clause. The terms for that clause that would not have been presented in the April 9th board meeting are within the document. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the agreement if you have them. And as soon as I find the exact page number that we have the out clause, I will be sure to bring that to your attention. But there are other language there are pieces of language that are the same. So for example, in the term sheet, maintenance and repairs were presented in a way that where they were, I believe, lumped together in the paragraph, but what you see in front of you this evening is they're separated out. Provisions 9 shows the routine maintenance and provision 10 shows repairs. The language is relatively the same, nothing that hasn't been reviewed by the solicitor. Negotiations continued right up until yesterday. So I'm happy to bring this to you by our deadline of June 30th to meet our PRP project deadline. And I'm happy to answer any questions by the board. Provided with the agenda is a recommended motion for your consideration.
All right. I was going to say, since this is a public hearing, probably go to the public hearing and then we can take any questions. It also does appear in, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, we do have a representative from Penn State here this evening. Otherwise, yeah.
Mr. Morales is attending, but there is, at this point in time, no presentation on behalf of Penn State.
Okay, got it. So this is a public hearing, so we will open the public hearing with those in the room. So feel free to come forward.
Bill Keogh, Ferguson Township. I heard what our manager said to you all. I am concerned about the lack of transparency to the public with regard to this issue, regardless of the excuses to not make it public. I'm concerned about the fact that it is a long-term agreement and has many pieces to it, including trade-offs between the township and the university that are not being made public, that it's apparently a big secret. I'm concerned about that kind of business that the board and or staff is doing. I tried to see the agreement thinking that, I'd go to the agenda online, and there would be documents, and I went to do that, and there aren't. The manager referenced township policy and other documents as the reason for not making this public. I'm not aware of the wording of the township document that makes it not public. I am aware of the Sunshine Act. And within the Sunshine Act, there are 30, I believe 30, maybe more, maybe less. It's been a while since I've looked at this document. Exemptions to the Sunshine Act. And if a body is choosing to exercise one of those exemptions to the Sunshine Act, I believe procedurally you must identify which one you're exercising and the justification for exercising that particular one. I believe that under the Sunshine Act, under this portion, it is the obligation of the board or the enactor to initiate that information. It's not the responsibility of the public to initiate that information. And so with that in mind, I would like the opportunity to listen to what reason under Sunshine this particular thing is, resolution is being withheld from the public, and the reason why. Thank you.
Yes, the manager is recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So the Township Municipal Code was amended in 2014 to reflect the open records law. And part of that is including what I will reference is, I believe, and I do apologize for not referencing the very specific exemption. My computer was doing an update. I believe it is under, let's see here, Chapter 1206, Public Records Access. Exemptions include Section 708, Provision 9. The draft of a bill, resolution, regulation, statement of policy, management directive, ordinance, or amendment thereto prepared by or for an agency would be considered exempt, along with several other examples.
Okay.
I will share with the board, however, because I have received some inquiries. I asked Penn State if they would mind that we had open discussion about an agreement, even though it was not executed at this time. And they provided in writing that they would be okay if we had conversations as part of our public meeting referencing the document. So I would encourage the board, if there are questions or comments, that you engage in dialogue and deliberation regarding the document in front of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there is any other people that want to speak either online or in the room, they may do so at this time. Not seeing any others, I will then close the public hearing and we can start board discussion if staff doesn't have anything further to add.
I'll start.
Yep.
So having read through this, and again, not being a lawyer, so obviously rely on everything that the committee did. I think the things that I took exception to in here were on page 2, number 3, and then I think again in number 8. It was, as part of this agreement, Penn State put the verbiage in there along the lines of the stormwater fee is a tax. And I am not supportive of that language because all along I have been very clear that the stormwater fee is a fee and not a tax, and they referenced that in there, and that that annoyed me. I didn't want the township to be acknowledging that we accept that the stormwater fee that we had enacted was in fact a tax. I emailed the township manager about it, and she discussed it with council. And you're probably better equipped to say that it is in fact not a legal acceptance of that verbiage, because they don't have standing, Penn State doesn't have standing to bind us to that statement. So that was my exception with what I read in here. I don't know about what the rest of you had.
I'm happy to echo what Ms. Stevens just shared. I did forward it to council. Council did respond. And Penn State, while the term stormwater fee considered a tax is not Ferguson Township accepting that language as accurate. Penn State is not the court of jurisdiction. If the court of jurisdiction had an agreement for us to sign that referenced the tax as a fee, or excuse me, the fee as a tax, that would be different. But that language as provided in writing from council, to be exact, the solicitor said, I did go ahead and review again. The language is only if a court of competent jurisdiction finds that the fee is considered taxes. The township is not agreeing that is the case, nor is the university saying that either. A court would have to rule in that manner. But great observation. Thank you.
I believe that hasn't.
Do you want to go to the podium, Mr. Keough, for a comment?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is, if I may, I think this is like an agree to disagree with words that one person can say something, this language doesn't really bind us to, it's just saying that, you know. So I think we're in the clear. That's my view, ma'am, and, but I also disagree with verbiage as well.
Right.
It's not holding me up from.
Right. I just needed clarification from that. That was I tripped up on that.
Yes, Mr. Patterson.
All right, Madam Manager, just a few questions. So number one, how close to the term sheet is this MOU? Is there anything that was in the term sheet that is not in this MOU?
There's some legal language that is more robust in the contract that protects both the university and the township. The item that is most pertinent in favor of the township is provision 12 on page 5, where it identifies expiration. So after our board had discussed and really expressed a great deal of concern about this being in perpetuity and being linked and never being able to have it out, part of what the team was able to negotiate was the out. And so on provision 12, expiration, there is additional language that's been added that's quite significant and substantial, and again, in the favor of the township.
Copy. The township shall have the right to withdraw from this agreement if deemed in its best interest.
Correct.
So we can get out whenever we want.
There are terms.
Sure, yeah,
But yes.
this is my next question. So we can get out whenever we want, but when we get out, we have to pay for what we have, or what we used, right? It's like, hey, you now need to pay, yes?
Yeah, we got the
Okay.
credits during that time. We pay for what we are leaving behind.
Copy. So it's a penalty for if you sign a 2-year contract with a cell phone and you decide to get out after 6 months, well, there's a penalty for leaving your cell phone provider.
Correct.
I'm just trying to put these in terms that everybody kind of understands and knows in their regular life. No one negotiates upon regularly.
And what was approved in the term sheet in April 9th, that was not included.
But again, we signed up for Verizon, we're in. Now I'm not endorsing Verizon, but we signed up, and so there's gonna be a penalty if you leave. I'll go back to kind of the bones of the term sheet. So there's a calculated amount of credits that Penn State if they had gone out to the open market and sold these credits to, there was a cost to that credit, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so that kind of makes us a partner in this pond.
It
Is
does.
that accurate?
Yes.
So it's almost as if we made our own pond to get the credits to meet MS4, and we're in it.
We're in.
But we actually didn't pay a dime up front. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Not one red nickel.
Nope.
We're not gonna see a capital expense, we're not gonna see an operating expense, nothing. Is that accurate?
An operating expense, that's an interesting term, but we're not going to see a capital infrastructure investment.
We're not, let me say this a different way. Are we cutting a check to Penn State if all goes well? If all goes well, meaning no major catastrophes, some retaining wall doesn't fall.
No.
Are we paying 1 red cent to Penn State?
To become a partner, no. For maintenance and repairs that exceed over 50,000, we will have an obligation for 43%.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. If
Okay,
all goes well.
I'll let you walk me there.
If all goes well,
Yes.
meaning
All goes well, we never
whoever
pay a
built
dime.
this,
Yes,
it was perfect.
yes, correct.
There's
We don't pay a
not
dime.
1 red cent coming from the coffers.
In an
Not a
ideal,
penny. Ideal world.
yeah, ideal, correct.
Okay, I'm trying to, get this, get us there to where this, we've got it, we had a term sheet. It had exactly what we talked about here. That term sheet, as you just said, it made it into this MOU.
Correct.
And so it didn't make it to everybody, but I want to make clear to everybody, the term sheet and the MOU are exactly the same. They've just tossed some extra words in there.
Right, and we get right away 17.5% of our MS4 PRP credit.
Day one,
Day
we
one.
get lots of credits.
Correct,
We spend $0.
correct.
Okay. But because we're a partner in this pond, like, okay, let's assume we did our own pond, we have to help with upkeep, right?
Correct.
We should, if we did it ourselves. But in this case, we're only doing upkeep if the amount of the upkeep exceeds $50,000. Is that accurate?
Correct.
So Beaver Branch, what's the one by your house?
Oh, yeah.
Park Hill.
Suburban Park, the
The
thing
drainage
there.
way infiltration.
If something goes wrong there, how much do we pay of those?
100%.
100%. So we pay
maintenance and
all of the maintenance.
Correct.
And all of the major expenses for all of those. Is that accurate?
Oh, yes. for all
Okay,
of
great.
the basins.
So with Duck Pond, we're gonna pay a portion of upkeep above $50,000. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. Great. Now, if we bring back the stormwater fee, and I'm not saying we will, I'm not foreshadowing anything here, Matt will kill me.
Go. Yeah.
If we bring back the stormwater fee and we say, all right, now everybody, it's time to pay this fee, we're gonna bring it back. How Penn State is reimbursed, the way that the fee calculation, if we were to tell them to pay us, they would withdraw it from the credits.
That's correct.
Is that
Provision
accurate?
5, stipulated payment mechanism for stormwater fee, details and outlines what you're referring to.
Great. So if we do a fee, Penn State will pay, but it's in the form of these credits that we've already gotten on day one, that we pay no dollars for, that, and up until there's some major catastrophe above $50,000.
Correct.
Great. And we can now get out if we absolutely wanted to for some strange reason.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you so much. This is a great deal. Well done.
Thank you.
I have opposing viewpoints.
Okay.
No, and I appreciate that, Walk, because I agree with everything that you said. I do. My concern is first with the transparency. I understand according to the regulations that we're following, 708, maybe section 9 says that this should not be a public document. I disagree. That's me. I think the public needs to see what's in the MOU. And I think they need to be privy not only to this conversation, but actually have things in black and white in front of them. Before I continue, I'm just curious, what are the next steps with this, where it is currently today and what we would expect over the next month or so?
In an ideal situation, the board approves the MOU and it's executed as early as tomorrow. And then it becomes, we will have it included in our submission to meet our PRP project requirement.
So if we approve the resolution tonight, then that automatically approves the MOU associated with the resolution. And then wet signatures are applied and it's enacted.
That is correct.
Okay, so the public has to go ahead and reference a document that was a couple board meetings ago and try and make that connection now between things that they're hearing and what they may have seen a couple months ago. So they're in a little bit of the lurch. And I think that's unfortunate. One of the things that bothers me with the agreement, and I appreciate the out clauses, that's so important. And I thank Penn State for getting to the table to negotiate that and work with it. That's, again, thank you. The part that concerns me is specifically if we turn or look to page 4, where it says repair means actions in connection with facility deemed necessary by the university. The university decides, not Ferguson. We don't even have a say in this. So when it comes to the final sentence there, the township will have the opportunity to review the design and offer comments prior to implementation. The partners aren't voting. The partners aren't contributing their thoughts to say, wait a second, let's all vote. Maybe we want this, maybe we don't want this, maybe there are other things to do. We don't have a say. Our citizens do not have a say in what a third party deems as appropriate and then just does. And if it is, for example, typical weather events such as storms and flooding that can lead to something like this, which we know through our climate research are going to be increasing, it's theoretically possible that one day, at no fault of Penn State's or the township or the partners, something happens. And Penn State says, look, internally, we're going to go ahead and manage this. But by the way, here are our costs internally, and it's $1 million. Ferguson, please put the $420,000 or $430,000 aside because it's over $50,000 and it's covered right here in section 10 of the MOU that they can do that. I don't believe our citizens want us to go ahead and say, please, third party, you decide what we pay. Now, granted, in the long term, it might pay off, right? That we're not having to spend this money to go ahead and do projects. I get that. That's great. But I'm not willing to go ahead and hand over budgetary control to a third party. That's my only issue with all of this. It's not the money we set aside. It's not planning ahead. It's that we don't have a say. And I would have loved to have seen, since the last time we talked about it and today, something that says the partners are involved, the partners take a vote, and they, come together as a community and say yes. Instead of one party deciding what they want to do and us just getting a bill that then comes in front of us. Maybe at some point in the year, we see a $430,000 bill because of something. We just don't have a say, and that's what concerns me. That's all, so thank you.
Any other board discussion, unless the manager wanted to chime in?
I don't know that I heard any questions, so I'm happy to provide feedback or comment, but I also would only provide some additional insight if the board was interested.
Oh, I'm always good with insight.
Insight's great.
Yeah.
Great, okay.
Please.
So what I would say, of course, the project's actually already been constructed. And so because we are an MS4 permit carrier, all of the MS4 permit carriers in the region are part of a process. So when there's a PRP amendment, for example, a PRP amendment I believe has already been done. The voices are all shared around the table and they weigh in on this project as part of the MS4 permit carrier holders in the region. So we do get a say and we do get to have an impact on that. Those discussions happen as part of the process. So I just want to bring into perspective that happens very organically. And I can appreciate some of the concern and interest from the public, right? Not being able to see the document. Going back to the structure of government, and I understand that it doesn't justify or make it easy to digest or accept, but as elected officials, you are entrusted with decisions as the governing body. And so in part, your constituents have elected you to make these decisions. and our home rule charter and our municipal code and our bylaws really very clearly indicate and inform what these processes look like. And I would say that you have great staff, and presentations have been given to the board dating back to, I want to say Q3, Q4 of 2023, presentations from who you may recall our former stormwater engineer, Aaron, who had done several PowerPoint presentations. And I have gone back and reviewed, actually our assistant township manager and I have gone back and pulled those presentations up that have been presented to the public. And prior to the board making a policy decision that you wanted to refer to the duck pond as opposed to the other construction projects that would have met our MS4 permit requirement, the board voted to do the duck pond agreement. And in those PowerPoint presentations that were provided to the public and those conversations that were open to the public, it referenced a high level of uncertainty because the negotiations had yet to take place. So these conversations have been in front of the board multiple times, and there is a timeline that we've put together, and I'm happy to present that. Not that it changes how our individual residents feel. I'm not suggesting that someone should feel differently about the process, but I do want to acknowledge that there's been a great deal of care and concern about your constituents and making sure that you all as the governing body, as well as the public, has had several opportunities to weigh in with concerns and opportunity to provide input about the projects that were in front of you as the governing body as early as Q3, Q4 in 2023. Not trying to suggest that anyone should feel differently, but want to bring into perspective, this just didn't happen over the last 6 to 12 months. There's been a great deal of care that has been, motivating to bring in front of you all of your different options. Happy to bring all of them up this evening if you would like to go through that. But the board did vote to pick the duck pond with several presentations and information that said there is an uncertainty factor. And that uncertainty factor was going to be how much financial contribution we were going to weigh in and what this whole process would even look like, because we've never done it before. And we're just trying to meet our credits in a way where we're having cost-effective, options. So I just wanted to give a little bit of insight. Hopefully that's useful.
Mr. Patterson.
So thanks, Madam Manager. We as a board decided to go with this duck pond. And it was the lowest cost of the other options.
Right.
And even with that 430, in your $1 million example of having to redo the pond, that $430,000 option was less than the other options of meeting our credit. So I truly believe this is a really good deal, even with the worst case that somebody else, some third party decides, but it's not just the third party. It's a university that is like a pillar. It's the rock of our community. Most of us are not here without Penn State. And so do I believe that Penn State staff is going to work with our staff to come up with the best solutions, the most cost-effective solutions, and then receive our input to come up with a good solution? I absolutely do. I trust that. 100%, 10 toes down. And so thank you for acknowledging, I tried to walk everybody through, when talking to Madam Manager, that the term sheet that everybody saw publicly versus the the negotiations back and forth, lawyers involved, they couldn't get into it. It's not real yet. We still gotta sign it. But I think that was transparent enough to know that. And to Madam Manager's point, I think I hope can communicate to the constituents. I certainly will. Anybody's got and this will be out. And I know that when they read it, they may have maybe they've got some I's that weren't quite dotted. Maybe you should have wordsmithed this a little differently. But is it a good deal? Does it match the term sheet? Absolutely. And we have an out. If somebody decides finally, I don't want to do this. I'm done. I don't want to pay the $430,000 when we're all gone, because I got a maximum 8 years. When we're gone, That's on them. They can do that. They have their option. We didn't leave the board, the next boards beyond us. We did not leave them, we did not saddle them with anything like other boards have saddled us. So that's all I got. I think this is great. Thank you, staff. Thank you, my compadres.
Yes, Mr.
If I may. And yes, we go back to, I do believe that Penn State will be making good decisions in this because they are a part of the community. So let's put it in black and white. We call it a partnership, but when one entity makes the only decision, that's not a partnership. That's my concern. And if we agree, and I agree, I believe Penn State will be there with our staff to have these open discussions and figure out what's best. So let's put it in the contract, in black and white. That's all that's missing to make this absolutely perfect, is that we will be there at the table to make that decision and to vote into that decision. That's the only thing that's missing.
It happens as part of the MS4 permit requirement. The regional MS4 permit carriers come together and talk through any type of PRP amendment and these types of repairs and maintenance. And if we, in a world where we did go back for negotiations, we would not be in compliance with DEP in our PRP project because the deadline is June 30th.
That's outside of, in my mind, the black and white. Yes, we are forced to make a decision because of the timeline.
Madam Manager,
That's what I'm hearing.
sorry, clarifying question for you. You're saying that in the PRP, when Penn State goes to do maintenance on the pond, the repairs that they make are not for them to solely decide?
They will review it with their partners. So we are a partner, College Township is a partner, at least based on the last contract that I saw at that time. And they will review it with us and we get to have a voice. The final decision is, of course, with the property owner. Our experiences and observations that we've had, especially with our township engineers and Penn State engineers, there is a very professional and like a very good relationship where those types of collaboration efforts have been well received from both parties. And in an experience where what wouldn't be, we now have an out.
And I'd just like to say, I mean, we do have where our voice is heard in terms of contributing to design, and I mean, it is in there in multiple places. But and I also think it's a discussion that we've been having in COG, and I sort of see this as like a COG relationship. In COG, we've been talking in this governance body that I've been working on. We talk about assume good intent. And I think
Yes.
that's what it all is. So I'm going to assume good intent here. It's really no different than our COG documents that we're trying to go back and are maybe a little lame, you know? And here we are. It's really no different. At some point, you have to assume good intent.
I get that.
Yeah. Ms. Strickland.
Just to add on to that, I mean, those partners do discuss these projects regularly and have been, so they all know each other, and so it's there is an established relationship there. So, but I appreciate and understand the concerns. I was uncomfortable before that language was added to the expiration clause, but I think the conditions are clear, and I think that does make me more comfortable having that in there, and I think part of the earlier discussions, even as far back as last year, looking at the various projects to choose from, that maximum cost of a, say, Water Street project or whatever we had been discussing, the other ones were over that maximum. And I think there is some benefit of not having to contribute our staff time to these things. And, you know, I think that does kind of alleviate a little burden on that, because we do have other projects going on. The Beaver Branch project, and we'll have other things going on. So I think it might lighten the load in that way a little bit, so.
If there is no further discussion on this, I would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
Amari, so moved.
This is Patty, I'll second.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Patterson, second by Ms. Stevens. Any further discussion? If not, I will recognize the Township Manager to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. This is a resolution 2025-18. Supervisor Thompson?
Yes.
Supervisor Patterson?
Yes.
Supervisor Heller?
No.
Supervisor Strickland?
Yes.
Supervisor Stevenson?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. The resolution passes with majority vote.
All right.
I'm gonna start voting no.
I love that discussion.
It's ridiculous, man. You know, we'll vote no. I'm gonna go no.
No.
Order. Would you two? All right, next up we
Separate them
have.
further.
At least we got police here tonight for the CIP. You might need to help me out here. Okay, next up, we have a review of the proposed 2026-2030 capital improvement plan. This will be the continuation. I will recognize the Township Manager to open things up.
Thank you, Chair. So we have this evening one department left, and that would be the police. And we are going to start and end with Capital Reserves Fund 30. I'll yield the floor to Lieutenant Lewis to present the proposed items.
All right.
All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to be able to join you tonight. I would like to start with the 2026 patrol vehicles. There are 3 vehicles on the CIP for 2026, that being a Ford F-150 pickup truck, a replacement of a Chevrolet sedan, and a replacement of a Ford SUV. Anybody has any questions regarding those items? Do you have page numbers or do you need to provide?
That was page 116, 114, and 118 for 2026 patrol vehicle.
Did we want to just do this like we did last night?
And just do the sections.
Going through
I think it's a great
through
idea.
each year, and then the board can say, if they, Yes, Mr. Heller.
No, I've actually, going off of kind of how we did last night, I personally have looked through these and really had no issues with any of the police ones that I needed to flag. So those are just my comments.
My
Yes,
only
Ms.
comment
Stevens.
is, like you, I looked through these earlier. My only comment is that I would, rather than have some of the police vehicles every 5 years, and I realized in the narrative it said it was a industry standard, but a standard is sort of a guideline. I'd rather see it go to 6 years if we could push out, because the mileage seemed lower. We are investing in, in some of our other things that we had approved in the CIP were for our automotive maintenance. I would like to see, rather than every 5 years replacement of the cars, just pushing it out to 6 years. So if that means I need to flag some of those, then.
I guess we can just put a pin in that for just vehicles in general.
Flag vehicles, and the reason being, perhaps going every 6 years, seeing how that works out, and then adjusting after a couple of years and see.
Right.
And I guess I wanted to ask, I had the same kind of question of like, are our maintenance folks and some of the, AC charger that we have in the CIP and the new meter and those types of things, is that going to help us extend the life of the fleet? That was Madam Manager.
One of them was for the AC charger, right? So in the event that we're having reoccurring issues related to heating and cooling, it might help with, or our diagnostic tool that is also in the CIP might help us better identify items. I can't confirm or deny, of course, if it's going to actually extend the life of a vehicle. I can tell you that the life cycle is set up based on data. It's informed decisions based on how long those patrol vehicles are running, they're out. It's really, for me, it's, at the operational level, really evaluating the data to identify, like, does this extending the life, put the vehicle with increased repairs over time? Does it jeopardize our officers and their safety if these repairs are reoccurring? So, I can appreciate the board wanting to flag it, and if you so choose, of course, to change the allocation to a different year, that is within your purview. My concern, though, however, I'm not so sure that I would want to change the SOP if given the responsibility to make that decision without studying and reevaluating that decision based on mileage, how often we're leaving these cars running, and really doing a study that's intentionally evaluating to see, are we seeing officers, I wouldn't want to put them in any harm's way is what I'm saying. So that is the board's prerogative. If you want to kick the funds to a different year, that would be your avenue to change the SOP. But I strongly discourage the board doing that without allowing the manager to assess at an operational level to come back with that approach next year to see if, after working with Lieutenant Lewis and our next chief, to see if that's something that we could do that would save money and not compromise the vehicle lifespan and or the officer's safety.
I think the ones that were for 2026 and 2027 were at 6 years, as I looked at them. So,
I'm just saying in general to
yeah,
change
so
the.
I mean, that would be your years to look at it, because then it was the other ones that were, it was beyond those that were every 5 years. So the 2026 and 2027 ones were 6-year intervals. When I looked at it, I could have been doing my math wrong, but.
No, that's what I had too.
Okay, yeah. So if in fact that you still get that, then let's just keep that interval.
I would also look at how that interval aligns with a lot of the internal components, because this isn't necessarily like a passenger sedan or even construction equipment that only has that one component. Not only within police, not only do you have the car, but then you got all the upfitting as well, and that also has a life. Computers, sirens, other components.
Right, and there's variations that Lieutenant Lewis could speak to, but like generally it's, the officers go to different, or they go to specific cars, and officers are patrolling certain areas of the township, and as we all are aware, our township is very diverse in its landscape, so officers that are taking a patrol vehicle and they're patrolling more frequently at Ward 1, that's a different impact on the vehicle than officers that are taking a vehicle and patrolling Ward 2, Ward 3, right? So the stop and go versus the, linear road miles that you have in Ward 1. I'll look to Lieutenant Lewis to see if he wants to elaborate on that.
Sure, yeah, we do fleet assignments, typically on a yearly basis. We factor in mileage, we factor in the officers that were using them and where their primary patrol duties are, and we try and spread that out as best as we can from year to year to try and get a more even mileage usage and a more even wear and tear on the vehicles. So that is factored in.
So thank you for your feedback. And
Right.
6 years, they are all relatively the same. But I think to your point, right, I think it's always prudent for us to evaluate to see, should we consider extending longer, or maybe even do we need to reduce the number of years? Just point being, let's do an assessment, right? So I think once we fill our vacancy here within this department and they can start to look at things like that at operational level, we can certainly come back to the board and talk about changes that we're making. But for this year, just looking at the CIP, I think looking at 2026, we have these 3 vehicles and we are looking to see if there's support for allocations there. For clarification, is this still flagged before we move on?
No, I mean, as long as we have it, staff, that you'll use 2026 and 2027 as your years to do your assessment.
Okay.
So then I'll flag
Okay.
with a modify, I think of some dates on the later years, and then next year we can come back and pull them left. I'd like to push them right, if everybody agrees, and then we can pull them left next year or not.
For 2026 too?
We're talking about the 28, 29.
Okay.
So add a
But
year
for
to all those.
okay. So we can do the I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're flagging 27, 28, and 29.
That's right.
Okay.
And it looks like there's some concurrence there.
Okay.
If we wanted to even just note that for now, I don't know if we want to revisit this again tonight or.
It'll be, it should be minutes, right? Like,
Right.
It's flagged.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
It's fine.
Are we good to move on? So out of vehicles, or do we want to start? Where would you like to?
Do you have any additional questions for any of the vehicles?
I do not.
I don't. Feel free if there's anything else you wanted to give us insights on, Lieutenant.
Yeah, I mean, if it comes up in later discussion, I'm happy to, if anything comes up in the interim, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Yeah.
So if we're moving out of vehicles, we'll go to the electronic scheduling program. That will be on page 108 in your documents, and I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that.
Mr. Heller.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I was just looking at the section again. I just wanted to go ahead and endorse the police public radio replacement.
Yeah.
Because I know that was on the agenda maybe last year. I know there was a conversation about that where it could have been done, but we didn't push it forward. So I just want to endorse that one when it comes up. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was actually just curious on that electronic scheduling program. Is that like a TV on the wall and somebody's, and everybody's kind of putting in their time in a scheduler puts all the time in the system and then everybody can kind of see on the wall, or I'm just curious, like what that looks like.
I'm happy to give you some insight into that. Right now, our scheduling system is paper copy on the wall. And so modifications are done, almost, call it World War II style, but the phone call comes in, the adjustments are made. We do have an electronic payroll system where things are entered as well. But in terms of the copy on the wall, it's not a TV, it's a paper copy with whiteout and different colored pens. And that doesn't give the same impression of real-time updates to the schedule. So we started looking into programs where not only could it be done without paper copies, but it would have access to the officers and the supervisors, wherever they are, to have real-time view of what the current schedule looks like, what modification can be made, is there coverage for, a last-minute sick time that day, and that sort of thing, where they could just check a phone versus call into the station to try and get that answer. So that's really what we're looking towards, and we're evaluating systems that are concurrent with software we already use.
Yeah. And I think that I find the scheduling one to be priority. I know that's one thing we're even talking about in COG, because there has been some just with just a paper or spreadsheet, there's opportunities for something to be missed I've actually had to witness that. I got called one day, my very first job when I was in high school. Hey, you're to be working today. My schedule says no. And then I go in, Labor Day weekend, no less. And the manager is running the truck stop all to herself. And then it was just two of us that whole night, all because some archaic system we just never. I had one version of a schedule, they had one version of a schedule, and
yeah.
So,
fortunately, we have a lot of.
It's also 2025 now, 2007.
But it would be an ideal scenario, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it said in the narrative too that this would save hundreds of staff hours annually, so I think that alone was,
Worth its weight in gold.
yes, exactly.
Right. Yeah, my understanding, a lot of organizations that have gone to something like this, a lot of times, the scheduling can be, set up based on how, it just saves a lot of time. I remember one company, just 100 some people, it was like almost a week-long endeavor for their HR person to put together a schedule.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that mindset.
Yeah.
Did you have any other questions on the scheduling program, or did you want to move on to the portable radio replacement?
I'm good to move on to portable radio.
We'll move on then to the records management system on page 136. Happy to entertain any questions regarding that particular item.
Looks good.
All right, if no questions on that, we can move to handguns and holsters on page 112. Any particular questions on that?
Yes. And I know this is a 27 item, but there are 25 currently working handguns in the station today. And we're gonna, in 27, replace it with 25 different handguns. And I understand the why, meaning a different thing. What happens to the other ones?
So the current handguns in use, we do have, I believe, 25 in station functioning currently. And typically when we've done replacements in the past, as is included in the.
Somebody joined, not muted.
There we go. As I included in the quote attached to this one, there is an estimated trade-in value to those firearms when you switch out. So typically the gun dealer the new firearms are purchased on offers a fair price, and we can choose to accept or decline that price.
Okay. Oh, looks like Todd pulled up a quote regarding this item.
I'm not sure that was intentional.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's fine. It's not.
Disregard.
Yeah,
Nothing to
disregard.
see here.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Oh, okay, that's why I missed it. In the quote, and on the right-hand side, it's 0, but underneath in the actual, it says credits for trade. I missed that. But, okay, so we're gonna say, here you go, Mr. Gun Dealer, 25 guns, and you get 25 brand new ones. Okay.
That's typically how that goes.
Yeah.
All right.
Any follow-up questions or other questions on this?
I think I'm good. See, in 2026, you're looking to replace some AEDs?
Yes, the automated defibrillators, that is on 106. Does anybody have any questions on that particular item?
Just a comment, I always learn something new, like AEDs have an 8-year lifespan, so, no questions.
One of those pieces of equipment, when you need it, you want it to work.
Yes.
Yeah, so, that's the thought that came to mind was like, is an AED like milk or is it like a can? Like one extra day?
Shelf life, yeah.
Like milk, you toss it, but the can, you can give it a couple days, or weeks or, anyway.
I guess the other thing too to keep in mind, those are also in the patrol vehicles, so they could be subject to heat and other elements that could affect the overall life.
Yeah, and that does push the recommended replacement to the lower end of that range because they're in those patrol vehicles.
Yeah.
In the winter and the summer months. All right, if no additional questions on those, on page 140, a stationary forensic workstation for the digital forensics lab for 2026. I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
I didn't have any questions on that or the other one.
Is this turbocharged enough?
Specifically on the processor or?
I remember hearing about all the good digital forensics work we do.
Yep.
And I looked at that price and I'm like, is that enough? Can you hook like 3-4 cell phones and cross-tabulate? And I mean, can we do?
We could invest in something bigger and better, if that's what you're proposing.
You know what, let's flag it, and I'd like to
Okay.
maybe talk about this, and is this
Okay.
enough?
That's
Seriously, I mean, like, this is the good work that y'all do across.
And it's a regional asset too,
Yeah,
as you said, I mean, as you said in the
Yeah.
past, so, yeah.
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 Okay, flagged.
All right.
And with no additional commentary on that one, I'll
Have I
jump.
stunned you enough? What the hell is this guy? More money? What's this guy?
That never
Who's this guy?
Matt, speak up, come on.
No, that was good.
Good. Told the tech guy not to have any more money for a toy. In this case,
It's not a toy.
in this case, a forensic.
Here we are.
So on page 110 is the forensic laptop workstation, and I'm happy to answer questions on that as well.
Any questions?
I mean, should I?
We'll accept more if you'd like to give more. It'll increase our browsing options, I'm sure. I'm joking.
I'm not.
I think we're good.
I think we're good. All right, so we can move into our flagged items.
Yep.
Okay, great.
And I was thinking probably give each section about 45 minutes there with, the option to extend debate.
Oh, that's, okay. Thank you,
Yep.
Chair. Did you want to offer a public comment on the flip
Oh,
side?
yes, any public comment thus far? And I guess there is nobody online, so, if we're good on that. Yep, I guess we can move the flagged items.
Okay. All right, so we will return back to Transportation Improvement Fund 32 for road paving program, page 82.
And looks like Mr. Heller and Ms. Stevens had some flags.
I think my flag was on Bergman.
Yep, Bergman, you had cited about Wawa.
Right.
I do see Mr. Patterson had something regarding a cost as well as just one house on
The
that.
whole thing.
Yeah, the whole,
And, yeah, it was the whole thing, just the whole program, and I guess if I were to channel Madam Manager, we've got accept, reject, modify. And so I went and drove these roads. I listened, hearing our engineer, hearing we should do a little bit, it'll get things a little better. I think that, we have in my opinion, there's two choices here. It's to modify it now or modify it at the budget. And so I would ask you guys, do we want to modify it now or modify it at budget? I'm okay with we got it in road paving, at least enough to keep us, every year, nice cadence. But at some point, we need to start looking at, are we okay with a 75 Tracer, which is probably the highest in the nation? Or are we okay with a 65 Tracer? And so then some of this can come down and maybe we bring that's an operational thing. Maybe we just say it's 200,000, 250, and let's start there. So I welcome feedback there.
Yes, Ms. Strickland. Well, I was thinking if we want to discuss about like level of service regarding Tracer, that's probably something we should look at for 27 onward. But it does raise, it is a good question.
What we decide from a policy and budget perspective would dictate, or would give the manager some guidance on where to go with operational tasks. That's why I stopped talking about Tracer.
Okay.
So, Chair Thompson. And just for clarification, when you refer to Tracer, are you referring to paver?
Paver.
Right, so yeah, the township utilizes what we call the Engineering Amera core program, and we use a paver system program, and we set to evaluate the road condition, integrity of the road, we set it at 0.75. And it takes our actual conditions of the road, we go out and we do an analysis, and it also takes based on, the sub-base, all things that our township engineer, I won't reiterate all of that. I would say, based on what Chair Thompson just shared, I can appreciate the board's role here. You can allocate funds, reject, accept, or modify. I would ask that the board respectfully consider, if you're going to challenge staff, to go in that direction, then we consider doing it for 2027. So, because right now, let's say there is a scenario that we might be able to assess and evaluate, right? Those 4 roads. We've got Cato Park, we've got Enterprise Drive, Lynn Street, and Bergman Court paving for 2026.
Terrace,
Excuse me.
Terrace,
Terrace, right.
Yeah.
Right now, the integrity of the roads and the conditions of the roads are what our residents are accustomed to. And while we may want to consider some alternative options that would fall within a reduction of allocation of funds the board may want to provide and impose for staff to work within those constraints, I would consider giving staff time to do some evaluation of the possible options and evaluate what are the pros and cons, what are the unintended consequences, are there more repairs to do later that are going to increase costs, giving us a year to continue with the existing work plan, but also do an assessment so we can maybe have a conversation with the board. So when you choose to make that final choice, if you were to give us a year, it would be an informed choice and with the public to be able to weigh in, as opposed to making that change. And let's say we use tar and I never remember.
Tar and chip.
Tar and chip is an option, right? So there are some factors that we have to consider, the volume of traffic on a road to determine, like how often are we looking at CATA, for example, the weight of a bus. And so evaluating certain conditions so we can bring back to the board. We can absolutely work within those constraints or we can't, but in scenarios where we can, making sure the board is informed with the impacts and changes and allow for that to be shared in a public meeting so your constituents are prepared for those changes.
Right.
So absolutely within your authority to do it as early as the next fiscal year, but recognizing there could be some missed opportunities to do a proper evaluation to identify, will this impact standards that we need to meet? And if it won't impact standards that we need to meet, are there going to be significant changes that our residents are going to experience? And do we want to provide a public meeting to have those conversations before the board makes those allocation changes?
So I can appreciate that. So, and given what you just said, I would be okay with that, except I think my only exception would be to take Bergman off and push it back, because there was one house.
Yeah.
And the Wawa will be coming in, and anyway, that would just be my recommendation, is just to pull Bergman off of next year and put it into.
I would recommend that we at least keep it by bumping it, keep it on the books. We did receive the Wawa submission, and so while it's just beginning as in like this week. So I don't have an official update for you except for that official submission was received by staff 2 days ago, I believe. Okay. This week for sure. And so, Bergman's on there with consideration that there was a a traffic impact study that was completed, and we recognize the volume of vehicular access traversing there on that road is going to increase quite significantly. And there were already, I think if you recall, the township engineer referenced that it did pop up in the paver system as needing some sub-base repairs with those alligator, visuals that you see there on the road. So if you choose to move it out of the fiscal year of 2026, I would recommend that we at least have it on the books for 2027 and just hope it falls favorably based on the Wawa. To be fair, the submission came in, they have 90 days. I don't know when construction would start. So all things to consider when you're making that decision. Thank you.
Mr. Heller.
I was going back to removing both Cato and Enterprise Drive, knowing that these are two roads in an industrial park that aren't traveled heavily, are only accessed when people need to get to maybe Cato Park or one of the businesses along the way, but they're not residential, so they're not improving the lives of the residents that live on them because nobody lives on them.
Yeah. But yes, you get bus traffic.
Right, so that brings me to another point of how does this work if these roads are truly being impacted by an organization or a business that sits on them? ARL has large equipment that it moves on these roads. So we're footing the bill for an industrial park road, 2 industrial park roads that are being impacted by the industries that are making money or, on those roads. So it's a little different to me because you don't have residents that live along them. And they're not heavily traveled at all. I just don't see the
But it is part of a bus route, so the CATA Center is right here, and I know in particular the bus route I take to come here goes on that road. So that it is heavier, and even though there aren't residents on them, ARL and all these other things are part of our community.
And there is a couple car dealerships that are gonna be using the roads to try to sell cars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't see the traffic need for it.
Okay, I'll throw out 300,000, modify,
For 2026?
26.
I believe you, that's cumulative.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's 300,000. I don't wanna dictate what
Yeah.
staff does, maybe they can
All
find
right.
some other ways to do all five if they want with 300,000, fine.
Yeah.
But I'm tossing it out as 300,000 from an allocation perspective. And in the budget meeting, maybe there's some discussions like Matt, board, Madam Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can come to us and say, we really need this after, budget comes out in August. So 2 months of work, you can say, we really need this, or we found a way, we're good. So that will be my thoughts.
Good with that.
Yeah,
Yes,
I was
Ms. Strickland.
Yes, thanks. I was gonna agree with moving out Bergman Court at least a year.
Yeah.
And I'd agree to moving out Enterprise at least a year and keeping Cato, and that kind of aligns with your dollar
Yeah.
figure. It would still be more, but if you wanted to look at a little more, something more concrete than a number. But what I wanted to say was this is similar to a discussion we had probably, Patty can help me, 4 years ago when we discussed the paver ranking system and modified it a bit and did set more of a dollar cap and have staff kind of go in and work within that. So I think that has changed over the past few years, and I know with some different budget constraints that's changed, but that was a discussion, and that was probably, maybe 4 years ago, so it's probably surpassed a lot of what's in the CIP at this point, but that was how a lot of those things were decided early on, so I think there's history there about using that kind of model.
And I'm good moving Bergman out, and I think I brought this up last year, but considering just how short Bergman is, and it's primarily serving two commercial businesses, I'm almost would probably be in favor if there was any possible way we could relinquish that to those local businesses, just to private from public. But I'm sure I'm asking a lot.
Assets, I would absolutely entertain that conversation, but I'm not going to businesses to see if they want to, I don't even know if that's legal, if I'm honest with you. We have a responsibility to maintain public amenities and assets and a road, and we get liquid fuel money. So yeah, I would say if the board is interested in reducing the allocation to 300,000, and that's the modification you'd like to make, and I've heard everyone's comments, I'd happily, take that in and apply it. And if there's consensus to reduce it to 300,000, then we can make that comment.
Lisa, what's the number?
I mean, I think if you take out Enterprise and you take out Bergman and you move them out to 2027, and then you're kind of bumping everything back a year, then we're at 1,
325.
2, 3, yeah.
Should we dictate if Bergman's on there or not, or is that more of a, here's money, staff go do?
I think I heard Supervisor Strickland refer to, my predecessors manage things differently, and I tend to uphold the municipal code. And so I hear all of what you're sharing. If you do 325,000, that clearly gives us an easy way forward. Remove the two that were discussed, right? I don't have to go and evaluate alternative tar and chip, right? So I guess in terms of upholding and maintaining the accountable as determined in our charter and code, what you've ultimately done for us is pave that path, but still focused on your allocation.
Right.
So that's what happens. Unless, of course, township engineer comes back and says there's something that he didn't share and I don't know to tell you this evening. And like you said, Supervisor Patterson, it's a discussion we'll have at annual operating budget. But for tonight, it sets the tone, the path forward. It makes sense to remove the two streets as discussed, especially when your dollar amount is very specific to the 3 roads as allocated and determined. So I think that's what I've kind of always shared with you all, is that you ultimately can inform exactly what gets done by way of creatively identifying what that allocation is. every time.
Works for me.
So for clarity, it's 325,000?
26 is 325, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Is there consensus? Let me just look around.
I
Consensus
got
to reduce?
3, 4, 4.
Fantastic,
yeah, okay.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. The next flagged item is paving, repair or line stormwater pipes associated with paving projects.
I think we can make this simple, it's just whatever you come up with, we can make it commensurate. And so the number right now is I guess it's only 43,000. I would leave it there. No, I mean, we could reduce it by 20%, but
It would
by
remove those projects anyways.
Right.
Yeah, so I think you're right, it's like an automatic reduction, removal.
I'll defer to you, Madam Manager. Would you like to leave the number? And then when you go to rejigger the paving numbers, the other numbers will flow down, and then we can save a few of these flags, thanks, or just the second flag? Or just give you a new number now?
We can adjust the number based on what was just discussed, if everyone is okay with that. And then again, the board completely gets to have a whole other discussion based on what gets put in front of you during annual operating budget.
Yeah. Guess it's 207.
Okay, so then we have our next item flagged as the bike and pedestrian improvements, Blue Course Drive and Clinton Avenue, page 40.
Yes, looks like Mr. Patterson. Did you bring an exhibit or something to show us tonight?
Looking for my own notes.
I was like, he's packing up.
You weren't the one that proposed the hour-and-a-half meeting, though.
Yeah, I might be here while I'm finding my notes.
If we wanted to skip ahead, I guess we could. Whatever works easiest.
I can read the description if that would help, just to kind of bring back. This is the project that includes the design, right-of-way, utility construction phases of improvements to construct a multi-use trail along Blue Course Drive from Circleville, T-Berry Lane to the terminus of Clinton Avenue at McKee Street Bike Trail in Overlook Heights.
I remember this now. This was there was some TASA funding that was anticipated. But we're talking about spending dollars now for some maybe later. And so that's what gave me a little bit of pause for concern there of, is TASA gonna be the way it is in those in those out years? And is it worth it to invest those dollars now?
I believe we'll know by annual operating budget if we receive the TASA grant, and that might help inform kind of where you're at right now with your thoughts.
So if I were to, I mean, if we were to, let's just say, kick it to 27, it doesn't, and TASA grant makes it to the budget, we could pull it back in. Is that accurate?
Well, our work plan generally is driven by what's approved in this discussion. So if you kick it to 2027, I mean, I can certainly override what you do, but that would go against what I would preach, right? And so to staff. So if you, but I will tell you, if you read in the description and the narrative, it does say, like, we've already made in the description that we would only move toward this project and mobilize if we receive the TASA grant. We do not believe that this is a project that we would want to allocate funds unless if we got the TASA grant. And so it's written in there saying pending funding.
Yeah. And
so if we didn't get it, you wouldn't see this on the operating budget that would be proposed. And we should know by, I think, September, October. So the question is, would you want to do this project even if you didn't get the TASA grant?
the answer is no. So then, and then so my question back is TASA the 50/50 or like where they require kind of the
100%.
contribution?
So we currently have the TASA, the transportation set aside program funding for the mobility project that we're doing currently in Pine Grove Mills. And this would be another TASA grant that the project is eligible to receive this type of funding, and it would be 100%.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I'm good with leaving it, and it won't be there if we don't
get
hear
the
anything.
grant.
Got it. And I guess on the flip side, if we don't hear anything yet, we can also pull it from the budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Is there consensus to keep it pending the grant?
Yep.
Okay.
You've got your thing down there. I don't think you want that destroyed.
Thank you. And then looking at T-Berry Lane sidewalk connection flagged in 2026, page 44.
Believe that one was Patty.
That was me. And that one I just, because there is a sidewalk on one side and not on the other, I was sort of okay with like pulling this one or just removing it. Just realizing staffing concerns and budget concerns. It's not as if there isn't a sidewalk.
Considering I see this every day,
Right.
it does definitely get a lot of use, and also if there is like a heavy rain event, like I said, the bike path does flood the way it's designed. The water goes through the bike path, so a lot of pedestrians and bicyclists, if the weather's bad, they're going to use T-Berry Lane to get to campus and downtown. So.
That's only, the bike path floods at the low point there, but the bike path also then goes towards the golf course and up that way. There's a path from your neighborhood into the bike path that goes up. But the low point, I agree, would flood.
Yeah, the one between T-Berry and the borough.
Right.
Yeah, so.
So this sidewalk doesn't address with the flooding at the low point, or does it?
No.
Now, I guess I kind of gone off topic and
Yeah.
off the path on that one, but there is a good amount of pedestrian traffic that goes through T-Berry, whether
Usually
it's
the
to the
Tudak or
grocery
something,
store,
yep.
Tudak, or even just, residents just going on the morning or afternoon walks, so.
Right.
And right now, the way it's designed, once they get to, I can't remember what that one is. It's not Hemingway, but the one after it, they have to cross the street to get a sidewalk connection. Yes, Mr. Heller.
There was a resident maybe 8 or 9 months ago that came in and discussed issues crossing by Circleville and T-Berry and that whole intersection. Is this,
Yes.
would this improve that?
Yes, this would actually, if there was a sidewalk connection where you didn't have to cross T-Berry, then when you get to the intersection, you don't have to cross T-Berry again. Because there is that left turn going into T-Berry can be a little bit challenging because you do have a bike lane going through the intersection, but then you also have pedestrians. But then you also there is not even an arrow, so you do have to yield to oncoming traffic while also making sure the sidewalk and the crossing is clear as well as you're turning in, so.
I would be a fan of keeping it in only because we did have a resident that came in to talk a little bit about his concerns in this vicinity with sidewalks and crossing roads, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's.
I'm either kick it or remove it. That's where I am. So push it out a year or two. Or there's a sidewalk on the side. There's single sidewalks in my neighborhood,
Right.
like single side, meaning not both sides of the
Okay, yeah.
road have sidewalks.
I'd like to keep it, but but I'd be okay with moving it out.
Yeah.
A year.
Good.
Okay,
27 for now?
sure.
Consensus.
I guess we got three for 27, so.
Okay.
I mean, kick me in the face and tell me no, man.
Or not kick, just say no.
Virtual kick.
Oh, virtual, I understand.
Well,
And the virtual
fun in
face.
It's no fun. I could use fun. Okay, all right, our next item we have here is the fire station.
You had questions on the timeline, Mr. Patterson.
We might be okay now. I think we were, well, I guess, maybe it's a 2030. Because right now it is,
Construction, design, and land acquisitions all for 2028.
yeah, I think the thoughts was keep it. When we talked about this a good bit yesterday, I think it was keep it. Let's just toss it to 30 but keep it on the radar.
Thought I even heard.
28, there's a whole working group that's got stuff to do. We've got a bunch of stuff. The design would go well before construction, so they wouldn't even be in the same year, but kick it all to the 30.
I'm okay with that.
30.
Or 29.
Sure.
I have more to say about this when we get to those discussions. I'm not saying this is anything for tonight, but yeah.
Oh,
29
okay.
works. Yeah,
So you're at 29.
I'm at 29.
Okay.
29 is fine.
Yeah, how about we go to 29?
Please.
I guess I'll be the tiebreaker.
Going 29, okay. And I will say to Supervisor Heller, if, we'd like, you might recall, we had Fire Chief, well, then, I don't think he was the Fire Chief, but
Yes.
now Fire Chief Sean Kaufman come and do a brief presentation last year, and perhaps we can, later in the year, ask him to come as that decision process is further along.
Yeah, that sounds good, and I'll just share then, just very quickly, is that my concerns with the fire station are around where the expansion and the growth is happening. We're not seeing expansion and growth where the fire station's going to go.
Yeah.
We are seeing it, we just approved a whole bunch of money to go and do a Benner Pike assessment, which, as I understand from Chief Kaufman, right, they were thinking maybe there's a satellite or something up there where they store equipment. I have concerns about Ferguson Township money being spent where we're not experiencing growth, and this ties in then to economic development. If we're not seeing properties developed, if we're seeing empty lots, et cetera, until we start to see growth or until we have a better conversation in that side, I think this has to get tabled as it sits today until we have a better understanding of what that could look like for our future. Because what I'm concerned about is other areas experiencing growth, and then we foot the bill to go ahead and essentially create the new station over here that supports others, when we've heard through Chief Kaufman's presentation that we're well within the standards of rural community response, of urban community response, of it, we're already getting serviced and we don't have any growth right now.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but that's where we're at.
Right.
Just my thoughts. Again, for a future conversation, just wanted to share.
Yep.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
and then we have the Stormwater Pipeline Program, page 207. And so we kind of commingled the conversation between this one and
Yes.
the video assessment and cleaning of stormwater pipes. And I recall, perhaps there was interest in wanting to explore increasing to better identify where our deficiencies are.
Yeah, I had a cost increase note from Mr. Patterson.
Cost increase note.
Yeah, I think,
Excuse me, just for the video.
the video.
Yeah, okay, just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that we're talking.
Yeah, so.
yeah.
That's what
Commingled
happened.
the
is
two, and-
We were talking about it during the lining program, and I was talking, we were talking about during the lining, but my concern, and I wanted to beef up the videoing to know where we were seeing the issues so we can address the issues. So,
Right.
quite frankly, maybe this is a both and, where like the lining can come down a couple $100,000 and the videoing can go up a couple $100,000. And so that's where I am. So I think the lining's at, 663. And I would want to bring that down to 400.
Yeah, I would
I'm
want,
making that up.
okay.
Ooh, Matt, you wouldn't even,
And put the 300 on the other one.
sorry, Lisa.
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question on the video assessing. I remember when we had discussions about this, defining the level of service for the stormwater fee, and we talked about video assessment, and there had been discussion about really going forward with a lot of video assessment at the beginning and then using that, but there was always a note to be cautious because that doesn't last so long. So how long does the video assessment last? How long is it accurate?
That's a great question, and it's something we hadn't talked about yesterday, and I don't have that information at my fingertips. But I think it is reasonable to say that we probably wouldn't want to add up all of the 4 years that we have and say, let's inject all of those funds to get all of the video assessment, because to Supervisor Strickland's point, we may not be able to move as quickly to do the actual repairs in response to what we would receive from the video assessment report. So it may be, I guess, what I would propose is if you would like to, I think what's been presented for 2026 are numbers for that lining program. I would recommend the board maintain that because that's based on what we do know. That is based on informed data from visual assessments that we've conducted. So when we talk about reducing funds, I would strongly recommend that we save the reduction of funds for the stormwater pipe lining for 2027 and beyond. But for 2026, the request for funds for that is based on already visuals that we've assessed. And our township engineer had, I think, explained that there are significant concerns with failures. That said, to Supervisor Strickland's point, while we would certainly be able to do more if there are more funds for the video assessment, I don't know that we need to drastically increase it because we can only move so quickly. That's a reality. So if you wanted to increase it, we would be able to do more, but I wouldn't necessarily suggest that we go and add up all 4 years and do that total.
So then I would propose 300 for the assessment. So it's essentially a little less than double on the assessment. And then 500 for the lining.
And that's for 2026?
26.
Yes, Mr. Heller.
I don't know if we have enough specifics, but it sounds like those projects were already in flight or needing to be done at an emergency pace for the 663,000.
I think that I would recommend getting some data, like in the budgetary time of this and saying, no board, 500 isn't enough, and here's why.
Yeah, get the conversation.
Yeah, but we start with 5, and increase then. Oh, sorry, I'm too far away from the speaker.
Good with that.
I got too comfortable.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And then it's looking at it on a priority based, scale. And so we're looking at the must do, could do, should do. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm concerned about the numbers overall because we haven't seen the budget implications. The overall ask for the CIP is about what it was for last year. And so when we haven't cut much, so I have general concerns, but that doesn't increase the number at all. So I think, we'll see when we see the budget.
So for clarification, we're going to reduce the stormwater pipeline program to 500,000 for 2026, right?
Correct.
Okay, I see, I'm
And increase.
sensing unanimous there on that one.
An increase to 300,000 in 2026 for the video assessment.
For the video, yes.
I'm seeing majority for that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any
township
changes to
engineer,
subsequent years?
that discussion, thank you, Madam Manager, yesterday for that discussion on the lining and, hey, we need to beef up that camera viewing, because I'm concerned with the number of failures that that Mr. Seibert mentioned yesterday.
we do own quite a bit of assets, and we have a responsibility to maintain those assets. And unfortunately, they become liabilities, and that liability increases with a lack of proper maintenance. So,
Ms. Strickland.
And doing the video assessment, kind of prioritizing that over the lining is what will give you that data to say what is in an emergency situation. And
Right.
I could not agree more, I think, because you're not going to be able to fund everything all at once, no matter what you do. So getting the knowledge about where we're about to have a significant failure, I think that's the only way to do it. And that amount, I'm assuming, would not be too much, that we would be investing so much ahead of what we could actually tackle on a lining basis. Okay.
it gives us something to work with, and then come back during annual operating budget, and we'd be able to say, yes, this is great, or we would share with you concerns. But
Yeah, I like that too, because like lining is gonna be our most cost-effective route. But if we invest in the camera and the camera is saying, this is beyond lining, now we can kind of pivot to, hopefully, it wouldn't be the case, but we can pivot to the more costly repair that we will then have to take to maintain the integrity of the stormwater system.
it allows us to make those informed decisions. I can recall 2 years ago when we started a project, we had a contractor out mobilizing, and it was to do the pipelining. And by the time we got in there, it was one that we hadn't done the video assessment. It was maybe right before we enacted the stormwater fee or right after. But we realized that the failure was far more significant than what we had realized, and we ended up having to do amendment. And because when they got in there, they realized that we were going to need far more lining material. And so yes, to all of your points, having data to help drive those decisions is pretty critical. Thank you. All right, so then our next item that we have noted, are we good? There was consensus? So yeah, let me just get clarification.
Yep.
Consensus for those adjustments.
Yes.
And that's for 2026, so nothing changed in future years. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then moving into, I have here the replacement of the single axle international, PW 13-19, and I had provided the board with copies of the expenditures for maintenance that were allocated for this particular vehicle. And it's due for replacement, but it was flagged.
I put stuff.
That was me. And, it's a fairly hefty price tag. It's the entire number we allotted to roads. It's, now matching the number we allotted to lining for maintaining infrastructure. It's little bit less than half of the number we aligned to, or to lining, and then half repair, equal to the videoing. So this seemed like a very large number for a single piece of equipment. And then when I asked the question about I think there was some maintenance on this, and the last time a similar truck got repaired, we shipped it out, and it was $20,000 or more to repair it. And thinking about this last night more, I said, okay, well, what's my tipping point for replacing my own vehicle that has, several years on it, I don't know, 12 years and nearly 200,000 miles, and okay, what's the biggest item that I'm gonna pay for until I say enough's enough, new vehicle. But I also thought that in government, we don't have that luxury to be down for a significant period of time.
Right.
So I don't know if this is a, go find the $200,000 vehicle situation, or is there a more budgetary thing that can be done that makes this more palatable? i.e. financing and saying, well, let's just go get a truck loan for $300,000, and then it's got a line item of $30,000 a year for the next 6 years, or $50,000 a year for the next 6 years. So it's not this hit to our taxpayers or our reserves to the time of operating time. So I'm not sure what to do with this. I'm sharing you my thoughts to get some help here on what should we do. I mean, I flagged it. I just don't know what to do with the flag.
Any insights?
I mean, I would share that if you're referring to incurring debt, right, the market does suggest right now that there are some benefits to doing that. For an asset at at an expense of $331,000, the township has historically purchased these items, even though it's it appears to be a big number for the township to be able to own that outright and manage and maintain accordingly without the additional administrative processing and requirements that we have to do today in government to submit. There's a ton of forms that go through the finance and tax department. And so even incurring debt in the form of a bond, there's additional reporting and requirements. You might recall the one observation we had a year or two ago. It was because of the EMMA, which I'm trying to recall what EMMA stands for, the Electronic Municipal. Todd, help me out.
Electronic.
You know what? We won't do that to Todd. So EMMA is the reporting obligation that we have to meet by October 1 for when we incur debt. And the challenge that I give some consideration to is are the benefits far going to outweigh the additional administrative burden, quite frankly, to staff? It's not a huge heavy lift administratively, but there are some additional reporting whenever we take out a loan. I would consider, of course, and the finance director and I can work on this, doing an assessment to determine what are the benefits in terms of collecting interest, letting money sit in our general fund and not using the entire amount to purchase outright versus, evaluating and comparing that up against what we would pay in interest for taking out the loan. So I can't give you a response tonight to say I think that that's the approach or the pathway that we go, but I can tell you those are things that we consider. In fact, Todd and I just received correspondence about the rates, and I can speak to this quite confidently because these are things that get put in front of us, whether it be from our financial partners or GFOA, where they're saying, hey, the market is ripe to do this. But generally that threshold is much higher than $331,000, but it's certainly not off the table to do an assessment to see, do we generate more interest versus paying more interest, depending on that observation. So I don't know if that actually helps you, but I would say that yes, we do need this vehicle. It's an important asset. We've extended its life cycle. It's one of those items that if we don't have it and we can't get out there and plow the roads, or it has to go back to an outsourced mechanic for repairs. I worry about the failures and how they only continue to increase incurred cost for the township and the downtime that our residents would experience. And whatever, I take everything right back to public safety and welfare of the residents that we're responsible for serving. And so having that downtime and not being able to get out there and plow those roads have a negative impact. So I would strongly recommend that, when staff recommends to me, hey, we need this, it's extended its life, it's in the shop quite a bit, there's going to be consequences such as we're not going to be able to plow the roads. And we interact, I'm on the phone with the school district almost every snowstorm trying to figure out so they can make decisions as to what we're doing with closures. So it all kind of interties with one another. Yes, Supervisor Heller.
Would we feel better about it if it was $27,000 cheaper?
Well, there are some grants every once in a while that are available.
No, I'm just asking because I added up the two quotes and they don't add up to 331, they add up to 303. So I'm wondering where the extra 27,000 came from.
Probably for the.
No, then they have clauses in there that it might cost more, but the two quotes are for 303.
So oftentimes we have to send it out for striping and I'm saying striping, but upfitting.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The upfitting one was 128,000, and I'm sorry, 175, and the other one was 128. I mean, we have both quotes. So I'm not sure where the extra.
I'll have to look into that and see if there's a discrepancy. But I feel better knowing that we might have a $27,000 savings, but I would also acknowledge maybe concerns that there was that oversight, but I'll look to the finance director to see if he could explain that gap.
I think it was billed at inflationary, so this is, the quote is for today, right?
Okay.
But we won't be able to buy the truck till
We're buying it next year.
summer, right, a year from now.
Oh.
Plus, the upfitting, we may
Gotcha,
not actually
gotcha.
get it till 27. We're waiting on the truck.
Oh,
It just got done that we ordered when I started here a year and a half ago, right?
Thank you. So we have an inflationary calculus that's factored in.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect science, but it's,
Yeah.
so we don't come and because this flows into operating.
More.
And we get up,
Be
we
more accurate, yeah.
get new quotes for operating because it's several months down the road.
Can we add $3,000 to this?
We absolutely can do what the board has consensus to.
I don't think I should up it by $3,000.
There's consensus that,
Ms. Strickland,
This is unrelated to what you're saying. I'm just trying to figure out the timing of the large trucks, the over 300,000 ones. Because I think in one place I'm looking, we have another one next year. But in another place I'm looking, we don't. So
I see one
in
for
one place I'm seeing there's
2029.
26, 29, and 30. And then in another place it looked like 26, 27, and 30. So my thought changes depending on if we have one next, because I thought we had it next year, and I was looking.
Oh, there's also one for 2030. But I'm not seeing.
The PW 3-57, that's the one, I just wanted to know what year that was in.
29. So yeah, it looks like we're trying to keep these around 15 years.
It says 29 from a number perspective, but the date says 27. That's why.
Yeah, okay. So it is 29, okay.
I just remember one of my predecessors saying about, we used to keep these things 30 years. They don't make them like they used to.
and the landscape of the township has changed from 30
Yes,
years ago.
that's true.
The population has changed and the landscape has changed and the requirements and the wear and tear on the vehicles based on, again, similar to patrol, depending on where those assets are at, to have a different wear and tear. All right, well, are there any requests to make a modification, or are we accepting or rejecting? Preferably not rejecting.
Accepting.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, what was the suggestion, or we,
I thought that was a jest. I'm sorry.
oh, I didn't even hear what the suggestion was.
Adding
So-
$3,000 to it.
Oh, 3,000, yeah, so some Patterson padding.
So I'm fine with this, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And just my thoughts on financing noted. Just no
Absolutely.
more- Okay, very good.
Our time on this has expired, so how does, the board wants to proceed, I take it.
Ready to
Okay.
move on.
We will move on. Check back in.
Okay, all right, so our next item, page 150, the replacement of the Bobcat Toolcat, which there was a request for an evaluation of the rest and pictures were provided to the board.
Got Mr. Patterson and Mr. Heller on this.
Pictures were provided to the board, I'm sorry. We're,
Email.
In an
Oh,
email.
I didn't see them.
oh, hold on.
Yeah, I think next year or in December, when we talk about the special meetings for budget and CIP, we may want to give a day in between so everyone has time to capture the information that's been requested and then sent for review.
Yeah, I was just curious again because it did come up in the, I think it was the COG Finance meeting when we were talking about equipment. Sorry.
I was gonna say earlier, Centuries, my inner child would not mind, looking at all these vehicles,
I
We
did.
do a road tour, but I'd
I will
happily walk through the
say-
shop with you.
The request for the visual prompt me to discuss with our road crew superintendent that once we have our public works director onboarded, we would want to talk about maybe just providing a picture for all of our vehicles and assets for future discussions, just so at the very least, those of us that are unfamiliar with certain types of vehicle and equipment, based on the name or title itself, that there'd be a visual there to complement what you're discussing.
No, and I appreciate it. Again, if we hadn't done it in COG and I saw, what a bad one looks like, I wouldn't have been asking. And comparing this to what I saw with that one, I would actually propose pushing this one out another year. I mean, that other one had rusted seats, and I don't even know how the person could even sit in it without getting a tetanus shot.
I was gonna say, I thought last night there was a concern about if the thing even had floorboards left.
That was me. I think I remember that conversation.
Yeah. So at the same time, I wanna make sure it's safe, Centuries.
I always have concerns
For the
about
operator.
safety, and I like to rely on the expertise of our professional staff. And so if the foreman recommends it to the road crew superintendent, who recommends it to me, I generally, especially of an item like this, want to move it forward to you. Again, I've definitely slashed a few items. This was not one of them. And while there was a reference to the floor, the rust on the floorboard, that was not included in any of the pictures. So I can't confirm or deny if there is rust at the bottom there. I do recall there were conversations, right, about, we'll just have staff take off, be more cautious about the salt on their boots before they get in. And that might do the wear and tear. I think that might be what the former Public Works Director may have commented last year. But I just, even worry about the integrity of the asset itself and being an available resource.
Yeah, it's listed as a should do, so I don't know if that really crosses the barrier for you as a safety concern, if it's a should do. So again, I'd still be a fan of pushing this out.
Agreed.
And actually, looking from the photos, I don't know if we do this or have looked into this, but I know many people, they'll actually get their vehicles oiled before the winter because it helps to repel the salt from, or at least gives it even a barrier between the metal and the road salt. I don't know if you can answer this, Centuries, but does this thing leave the township grounds? I've seen a Bobcat out even as far as T-Berry, and I almost wonder if that's ours. If so, it's getting some mileage.
Yeah, we have a trailer where we take our equipment where it's needed. It's primarily used here, but it's used in other places. For confirmation, are you requesting this be pushed out for 1, 2, 3 years?
I'd be okay with 1 year.
Agreed.
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
you got,
Consensus to move to 2027?
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Our next item would then be the carpet replacement. It was flagged.
That was me.
And you were looking at alternative flooring options.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember we had this discussion before about just in the high traffic areas and things like that. But I'm okay with leaving it in as long as we also maybe investigate in future, like a better surface, something.
Absolutely. I think the feedback that I heard last night is just acknowledging, like, if for example, in PD, if there's a lot of traffic, and that's where I believe most of the replacement is with the sergeant, the chief's office. And so, yes, of course, we are more diligent and mindful about certain areas that have more traffic or that are right in from an entry exterior door versus maybe the chief of police's office, that we would probably want it to look a little differently. So
I can kind of see that with police department, sorry, not to literally compare you with Public Works, but there's so much in and out that probably, some type of hard flooring surface is probably easier to maintain versus a carpet.
I
And it
mean,
said the gym.
I'm not walking in there as much as you are, so.
I can say that the high traffic areas in the police department are all hard flooring.
Okay.
Especially the ones near the doorways that are getting the most, or in the general, staff areas, like main hallways, patrol room areas. So, the carpeted areas do tend to be offices, that have
Okay.
a single person or two people or three people assigned to that space. And they're not seeing the high traffic areas much. I can't speak to the ladies' locker room.
Those are the ones I was gonna ask about.
Good.
A lot.
Very good.
They got that place all decked out,
That's a good
probably.
The locker room and the gym were listed as carpeted areas also, okay.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the ladies' locker room is not good, the carpet in there.
Yeah,
And now that we have 2 female police officers in addition to, yeah, so what were you gonna say?
so they do have carpet, okay.
Yeah, it's partially carpet,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I would think that might lend itself to a hard flooring, but.
Yeah.
I was gonna,
It's an ooh.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I would probably suggest just saying, flooring maybe in
Instead of carpet.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
number, a budget number
like that.
and whatever makes sense,
So-
because we don't know what you want.
so give an appropriation for flooring with the autonomy of whatever they find appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes-
I think we had
Are
about
these-
4 consensuses on that.
Yes.
My carpet, well, like, is this carpet, like, coming up off the, kind of, or is it just like worn? Just like, you know what I mean, the difference between like, it's
Both
been
in the
walked
female
on.
locker room. It's coming up and it's got lots of stains.
So
Just
not
stuff that's
aesthetically
been-
pleasing.
Yeah, I can't speak.
Trip
to that.
hazards.
No.
I would say that the gym, very similar to that. And in the offices, it depends on the office, the complete level of wear. I can't say I look at the floor routinely in every one of those offices to give you an exact input, but not to the same level, I would hope, as what the gym looks like.
Sounds good. If we get to the point where we need to cut $10,000 or $25,000, this is first on the list, and we can talk about it during budget, so I'm okay leaving it.
Yeah, that would be my only recommendation, is to change it from carpet to flooring.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. It gives a different,
Yeah.
Gives you some
More
latitude
space.
there.
Yeah.
good point. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm also noticing too, this is 2027,
Right.
so,
Oh, was it 27?
yeah, so.
Maybe we'll bring pictures for the next discussion.
Bring
right,
pictures
there we
for the
go,
next
see?
discussion, yep. But, yeah, so, maybe, yeah, I feel like we've given enough information, we can revisit next year on,
Okay.
Section complete.
Go right, yeah,
Yep.
section complete. We'll go right into capital reserves fund. Computer server for Coast One, Azure cloud migration.
I believe that was Mr. Patterson.
Or did we want to take public comment?
We,
For
yeah,
the
oh,
section.
You good?
I'd rather just have a summary comment at the end before you
Of-
adjourn.
so no comment.
Okay, so, okay,
no comment.
we'll come back to you at the end of the proceedings.
Okay, so the servers, I think my comment from yesterday was just about, options
Yeah.
and quotes and some comparisons that we can, so that we're not, so I guess the question is, do we give a different number and you come back and say Azure's the only one and that's the best, or do I give, cut it in half and say which one, let's,
Yeah, a
which
great,
one of the competitors can do that?
a great comment. So right now, I will say that we are, through Hinton and Associates, we utilize them, and then they generally have contracts and can provide options through them, and we can submit some requests and have. And so what I would like to do is bring this back, of course, for the annual budget discussion, because this is actually on for 2026, and by that point, we can certainly bring back some additional information in terms of what flexibility we're able to leverage through Hinton and Associates. And that might very well lead to some other discussions that I have on my list to discuss with them in
Copy
terms of
that.
options.
Great.
Any other comments or
So we're
questions
gonna
about
leave it
those
alone.
servers? I think the narrative provides a great deal of insight as to like what we're hosting on those servers and whatnot, so. All right, and then we have, the next item was what about, did we address both of the?
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. All right, and then we have the administrative vehicle, page 30.
Yes. I guess I was just asking for a little clarity around this one. Specifically, it was purchased with, it was already 10 years old when we bought it in 2017?
That is incorrect. It was new when we bought it in 2017.
Okay, so the narrative or the description reads that it was 10 years old when it was bought, as I'm interpreting it.
Or is that the replacement time from 27?
Oh, it says 10
10
years old at the time of purchase.
Maybe it's at the
Maybe
time of
from the time
replacement.
of purchase will be.
Yeah.
But they meant to say it's gonna be 10 years
I'll look
old.
to the finance director and see if he has any comments.
You didn't buy a 10.
My comment is I wrote that and I probably made an error. That I meant that it was gonna be 10 years old at the time of replacement.
Okay, perfect.
So once I find it here, we'll add that for correction.
Bring more clarity, yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for finding that.
No, again, it was just, one of the questions then is, which vehicle is this and for what staff?
It's for the boss.
That was well said. So there's a contract and
that's what
there are options provided in that contract. And currently, the exclusive use for an administrative vehicle for the manager is not being utilized. But in 2027, manager may want to do that option again.
Yep, that's what I was getting at, is this is a contractual relationship with this one.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. No questions. I'm good with it.
It was actually due for replacement when I was appointed, and at that time, I didn't see a need to purchase a new one. I was just fine driving my predecessor's vehicle that was purchased when he got appointed in 2017. And then it went into the fleet for use for staff. And I went in a different direction for a period of time.
Gotcha, okay.
So this sort of leads into my question that I wanted to make sure I brought up before, particularly with the administrative vehicle, it's something that maybe we would go electric, or something like that, just not even, but one of the things that it seems to me that's been missing in the CIP is infrastructure for charging stations. I haven't seen that anywhere. And that would fall in the CIP, wouldn't it?
It would, and that's a great observation. I've recently started assessing at an operational level our fleet replacement and really looking to see how that aligns with our charter that was amended in 2017, as well as our requirements to be a lead facility owner of Building 6, as well as some other policies that the board has adopted over the years. And so kind of full circle here, there is a push and a requirement at a policy level to start looking at electric vehicles to align it with sustainable practices and policies that the board has approved. And I'm currently doing that assessment, but it's not something that's going to take a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I'd like to bring in our public works director, give that person time to settle in, let them also collaborate with our future police chief. So this is one of those items that as your manager, sure, I could do with those around the table, but I think we probably want to give opportunity to empower those that will be managing those policies and SOPs in future years. But I hear you, and you are correct. We have an obligation based on policies that have been passed to align with more environmental electric purchases.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Then we'll move into the Parks Maintenance Program, page 96.
Mr. Patterson, you want to take another look at this?
did. So we have the parks maintenance program, and we have several other parks items like the Homestead Park backstop replacement for $12K, the Fairbrook Park replacement there. And so I wanted to, I guess, propose or kind of think through with our team here, that instead of these multiple line items, just giving staff the flexibility to go and repair park items with that park program line item new for this year. And so I think right now it's at $25,000 per year. And now that we know that we have $12,000 associated to that backstop, maybe taking that for this year to $35,000. So removing the backstop line item, making that program $35,000 this year. And since there's some others making them all maybe $35,000 for the next 5 years, and removing all the other line items, just give that flexibility to staff.
And I'm going to yield the floor to Assistant Township Manager, as he's the one that's been managing our park program since assuming the role of Assistant Manager and put this program expenditure together.
So the idea here, I mentioned this last night, but I'll kind of go back through this again. So 2 years ago, the playground inspection, safety inspection kind of led to, informed that there were 4 parks that were nearing end of life cycle. And last year in the CIP, that's when the board first saw those 4 coming into focus. So those being Tudick Park, Autumnwood Park, Fairbrook Park, and Homestead Park. So Tudick Park is currently happening this year. Autumnwood Park is scheduled for 2026, and that's part of the Kaboom grant program. And then that leaves Fairbrook and Homestead. Those were, like I said, those were identified as they're nearing end of life cycle. One of the issues with those is as we drag those out, it's harder and harder to get replacement parts for them. So we repair them and we replace them as long as we can get the parts. Eventually, we can't get any more parts. So for instance, just for example, Tudick Park, that playground was put in 1998, and there were no longer any parts available for it. So it was like, not only is it end of life cycle in terms of just use, but we also can't get anything to repair it anymore. So we're kind of on borrowed time with that. So the 2 that are left here for Fairbrook and Homestead, we're running into the same situation with that. But the idea was kind of getting into the maintenance program was there's really only 2 ways to fund the park improvement fund, and that's the parkland fee in lieu or transfers from the general fund. So obviously Fairbrook Park and Homestead Park still being out there, those were kind of like, those are bigger costs that kind of get tossed in. Hey, we've got to do these. These are kind of a safety issue, and we can't get parts for them. The thought was, rather than putting in these one-off larger chunks in, that putting in a smaller amount from the general fund, a transfer in there, a smaller amount, and at this time I'd recommended $25,000, was that over time we can maintain and repair and replace the amenities that we have while building up a small fund balance year over year, so that eventually in the future, when we get to the next playground replacement, we can say, well, whenever we get to X amount of dollars, we'll, in the fund accrued, we can replace it, or we can prepare to replace whatever is the next item that needs to be there, rather than having to dump 150,000 or 200,000, whatever it may be, suddenly. It would accrue over time. So that was kind of the thought of the approach to this. And like I said last night, based on the assessment that we did this year, a lot of the amenities we're in pretty good shape. They're all pretty good. We have a small number that need to be replaced over, in the short term, but generally we're pretty good. So it's a good time to get ahead of it and to start that now so that we can keep them in that place and not have to sort of fall off the cliff where in 5 years we come back and say, hey, we've got these 4 playgrounds that need to be replaced. The idea is to try to get ahead of it as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I guess what I'm proposing is similar to our our paving program, similar to our microsurfacing program. We've got a program, and in the summary, it says, here are the 4 roads we want to do, and here's some dollars associated to it. And so I'm just simply suggesting the same thing here, that there's a program, and this year you've got Homestead Backstop in it, and a couple of repairs to the other 3 for 35. And then each year we kind of go from there.
Sure.
Okay, is there consensus to move forward with the parks maintenance program? And if I hear you correctly, you want to increase it to 35.
35 for 26.
Remove the backstop.
Correct.
Is there consensus to move in that direction?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of sinking funds, which essentially is what you're creating here. So I think that's fine. I would want clarifying language added to that to explain why it was different this year.
Homestead, yeah, the same way we've got Cecil and, not Cecil, in the roads, they had the 5 roads in there and the cost for each road. This year it's 35 because of the Homestead Backstop, right? I think, yes.
Yeah. I mean,
in the CIP itself, like
Right,
in
yeah.
the description, got it, okay.
Because, for that matter, I don't mind it staying a separate item, just because it's added in at the onset of this maintenance fund / sinking fund for future large capital projects. So I think just, it says in there that it's gonna be accruing a balance, and so the fund balance will be larger, but I think just kind of expanding on that so that it's very clear what the intention of the program is.
So if I may, just a clarifying question, is the proposal that we increase the fund to 35,000, and when we say remove the backstop, we're saying it is paid out of that fund now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just, we're not.
And that would just be if
Thank you very much, I'm good with that.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, just increasing it by 10,000 for 2026, and then go back down to the 25,000 in 2027. And I think too, yes, adding that clarifying language so it's clear, and we would have
remember.
Right.
Oh my gosh, so true.
Like, I don't know why we had it at 35 and then we lowered it to this, so.
Good with that.
Okay. All right. Well, that concludes the flagged items. Oh, so.
I have a go back on flagged items, and Patty actually reminded me, it's page 178, which is the generator emergency.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the one that's outside of the generator. And someone told me, I guess this was last summer, that the generator,
Oh, yeah.
when we kick it on regularly just to make sure it works, it's producing energy, and it's not being used at the time when there's no emergency. It's kind of wasting that energy. And my understanding is we could run a little cable to the grid and say, hey, grid, have this energy, and the township could make money from that energy by running the generator, make sure it works at the times that we don't need it.
I would have to get confirmation. I'm not sure I'm prepared to say that.
It's okay. Yeah, this is Matt Herndon talking about, like, this is a regular thing that organizations are now doing to make money from the generator that you have to run just to exercise the generator. So in the last sentence of the description of The generator, it says conversely, consider a study to determine the feasibility of solar generation, battery storage. I also think we should
Yeah.
plus up 26 to do that work. I don't know if we can fit solar panels on top of here, but I also think we should add solar panels on top of here. I mean, we're gonna get, what, 80-90% from the SPPA in October of next year. Why can't we get the remaining 10 within the next year?
Well,
and be ready?
Yeah, I would say that, we are currently in the process of waiting to hear back from our grant to do the comprehensive utilization space study here on our campus to identify where we need to, based on anticipated growth and forecasting what our needs are here on campus. So we would want to identify what our campus might look like in 3 to 5 years before we would want to invest in solar. I mean, obviously, we're not going to do anything with Building 6 because we just constructed it and we still have bond payments to make, but all of the other buildings, we would probably want to have a comprehensive report to determine how we want to move forward in a very strategic way. So I agree with what you're saying, with the exception of installing solar panels on the top of this roof in case we would want to build up.
We're not building up anytime soon.
I mean, I will tell you that we have staff that are working in very small, like we are starting to outgrow our space. I think I've shared with the board in previous conversations, FTPD, they're absolutely out. They've certainly are busting at the seams in the current main building here and have started trying to utilize the building one, the old public works building. But the problem that we're having, of course, is codes. We only have a permit to allow for that to be utilized in the way that it is currently without offices. And they try very hard to bring in office space material. And, so all of that to say, I think that what you're saying brings a lot of merit. We should have further conversation, also recognizing that we're going to have a new public works director. And while I want this person to succeed and set them up for success, I don't know, putting this on them in 2026 is something that I would recommend.
Yeah.
But we can put funds there. Right. And if it's something that we are able to do, we will have the funds to do it.
Do like that you brought back up about that generator, because even considering the last couple of days, my understanding the electric company could have called on us to fire up that generator to try to help keep up with demand that apparently got a little overwhelmed the last few days with the heat.
Our generator?
Yeah, selling back to the power company.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard if there are standby generators that are connected to them, if there is a high demand, they'll deploy those to help meet that higher demand.
So I'd say we can certainly look into it. And if the board wants to place allocation of funds, it's something that we can come back and have further conversations to see what we are able to do as early as 2020.
I'm not a solar expert, but I don't know, 50K? 26?
In 26.
Or I don't know what a generator plugging the grid is, but 50K maybe a wag at it until
I would
budget
want to
time.
do an evaluation. So I'll just look to the board to say, if you want to throw a number out there, we can certainly add it. And then it gives us some time to do some evaluation to determine what is feasible to do and the time frame to do it in.
$50? Come on, Patty.
And this, you're saying the 50 is for the study or for connecting our generator?
Study, generator, panels, all the above. See what we get during budget time.
If we can do it. I mean, I do want to set realistic expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we put the funds there, it gives us something to work with. Knowing budget preparation at an internal staff level starts in August. And our new public works director could be starting in August. So I'm just putting the funds there. I don't know if 50 is an appropriate number. I don't know if 20,000 is an appropriate number or 100,000.
What's the time frame or the space utilization study. So is that?
We submitted the grant, or the grant is due, a final review will happen tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Submission is tomorrow. And we would know by, I think, August. So we will know by annual operating budget if we've got the grant.
Okay, so conceivably that would happen next year in the
Yes.
study. Okay.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. So I would maybe put that in for 27, knowing that staff is going to be undertaking, what could be a similar, I mean, I would think would be part of the study.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
actually,
you
that's a
could set
really
the
good
scope of
point.
the
We could
study.
certainly add in the scope of work that we would like to have a feasibility study done to assess where we might be able to increase and expand our solar energy options. And that would actually work seamlessly and be and we could work it into the grant. Because my comment was going to also say we put money in and maybe we just start with the feasibility study. But we could actually integrate in the scope of work for the comprehensive space utilization study to assess with the solar generation and battery storage. And that kind of means
We
all
could
of
also call a solar installer and potentially have a solar lease with solar panels on the roof before that study's done.
possibly.
Kind of like what Center County Refuse and Recycling did.
But if I may, we've already done solar installation.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we've done it,
But we
yeah.
did have a study done and we had a consultant come in and they did all of that for us. So if you want to, that's what I'm saying, if we want to, in addition to the space utilization and you want to expedite this, then I would say we need to put money aside to have the design done and then have somebody come in and manage that process.
But if I may, I happen to know kind of the installer and the company, and I don't know if it would take that level of effort.
Okay.
I really,
Yeah, so we just put some dollars to it
yeah,
to get it
just
done.
have a
That's what I'm
conversation, just
saying,
do
right?
it, yeah. I just,
So your policy would be setting the funds.
That's right.
What would, yes.
Policy for solar, or funds for solar. And understanding how to get the generator plugged into the grid.
Interconnection of the generator to the grid, yeah.
And so 50K is the opening salvo here to like, can we get it done at which budget time? Staff can tell us that they can do it for 50K or less, or more.
So doing it outside of the study through the grant. Is that just for consensus?
Correct.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess from a study perspective, it's like, oh, we get this consultant for a study that gets done in a year and a half, that then tells us to build something that, I'm not in favor of building anything right now with no growth. And so, like, I just think it's gonna be years to build anything, many years. And so that's many years of like powering this building before the next step. And, okay, unscrewing the solar, plopping a second floor, screwing solar on top of the second floor, I think that's separate and apart.
Here's what I will say to the board, just looking here at, an AI generated response, it looks like to do what's being asked, we're looking at an average cost estimate between $25,000 and $150,000 for a small commercial, based on 50 to 500 kilowatts. And I would also ask the board, if you want to put the allocation of funds, absolutely, we'll do what we can, but setting that realistic expectation in terms of operations, we'll try to move forward and advance it in accordance with the desire of the board, recognizing the board has allocated funds for that.
Is anybody opposed to 50?
I'm not opposed to 50.
In what year?
26.
I am opposed.
I'm not opposed to it, no.
So,
I mean, I'm in favor of looking into solar on this building, period. So I think the 50 just seems so arbitrary to me. I really have no parameters in my, so I guess that's, that is the closest thing, and then knowing that we'll be in the PPA and what exactly are our needs. So I'm not opposed to it. I think, moving forward with something like that, I'm in favor of it. I think
we signed up for 80 or 90, I can't remember the number, the percentage, but that's what I'm saying, like, let's
think we
get
were at
let's get the 10 or 20 up there, start reaping the benefits for that, reap the benefits from the SPPA, reap the benefits from building 6, bring our costs down, and maybe even make a buck before we even think about the next study and consultant we go spend money on.
Yeah, I think if we said 50 and that includes solar on this building, panels, to accomplish what is needed to get up to 100% of our usage, the connection for our generator to the grid. Is there something else? I don't know.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, so as long as that 50 contains both, I mean, hearing that estimate, I would think we'd be on the lower end of that because we're already buying so much of our power from the PPA, so.
I agree.
Yeah. But I think it does seem like, I mean, you're saying it's not a big project. To me, it seems like a big project today, but I'm not familiar with it.
And I think I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation as it relates to solar.
So while I'm in favor of it, I'm just not an expert on, you know, really what it all is.
Just to help here, the 50, we can make it 2. It doesn't matter
You just want
because
a placeholder.
it's a placeholder for staff to go and do what they do and say, board, this is stupid, or board, this is great, and here is the real number for 26 to do this. And then we can say, ooh, that's too much and we gotta cut it, or that's great, move forward, please.
Yeah, but I do want to have some kind of realistic number. I think that's my struggle with it. You know, I don't want to put just 2 in there and get back here in October and say, you know, that's not going to do anything for us. And then we're suddenly looking at, you know, what year is this for right now? Much, much more. So I'd rather go with something that seems reasonable to accomplish what you're suggesting.
I think 50 is a good start, and if they come back at 75, okay, but if they come at 500, that's it. But I don't think it's gonna be that. I think Century's Googled, you know, 25 to 125.
Well, and you know, like we said with something else, maybe it was with the carpeting, if we come to budget time and we're really having to nickel and dime on some things, that's something that goes, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Consensus for a placeholder in
Sure.
2026.
Looks like you got it.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank
Thank
you.
you for allowing me for the go back.
Was there any others?
I think we're ready for public comment. Did we have anything in the police?
Oh, we did, yes, we did.
I think we'll take a recess and then
Okay.
visit police.
Yes, we have police.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Like I waited here.
Think about calling a recess, Bill, but did you have anything before that, or you're still good to the end? Okay,
What else do we have to do?
just police,
Police.
so.
Yeah, I'll make a comment now. I
All right.
go home.
Sounds good. James, was there anyone online? Okay. We're good.
For transparency's sake, I'm only speaking at this time for the people that are in the first 2 rows. Okay? The CIP document is really quite comprehensive. I've got a shelf full of CIP presentations back from when I was a supervisor and intermittently all the way up to now today. This is probably the most comprehensive CIP document that I've ever seen. That being said, I'm also going to say that it's not terribly citizen-friendly. And y'all have a real challenge from the perspective of creating a document for you to make decisions and staff to work with you and you work with staff about making decisions. And this document seems to fit that need. However, it's not terribly citizen-friendly. 219 pages to start with makes it not quite so friendly. I'd like to suggest that we develop a citizen summary copy that takes some of the critical data and puts it in a package, 2 to 5 pages, that the average citizen can look at, could have some questions about, but on the other hand, is not just so overwhelmed. I spent 3 hours getting through 100 pages today. And the average resident and taxpayer in this township is not going to spend that kind of time. But I think their feedback would be good if they had some. So I'd like to suggest that we consider some kind of a summary document written for the citizens and taxpayers. And I'm volunteering to be a part of the committee that looks at the data and says, what would be helpful and what wouldn't be helpful? I'll be a part of that. I would prefer not to have staff say, write me up something and we'll consider. I'd rather sit down with a group of staff and board members and do this collectively. Somehow, I'd like to see us figure out a way at this stage in the overall development of a budget for Ferguson Township, some better tie between the data that you have and is presented and what it's going to cost, where the money's coming from, not what it's going to cost. We know what it's going to cost. Where the money's coming from. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that issue, even though I've got the document. So I think we got to be a little more robust in how we tie where the money's going to come from to the CIP budget. Separate note, I want to thank you all for the discussion you had on the duck pond. I'm still very concerned about the secrecy issue. I don't think we had to enact a secrecy policy for this or rely on the sunshine law or whatever. I think this could have been, we could have asked Penn State long ago. We need to discuss this publicly. What are your thoughts? Can we? And gotten the consensus that apparently we got today. I just feel that we're setting a precedent with this kind of an arrangement that I'm not real comfortable with. I understand not making public union contract negotiation. I understand most of the 30 reasons for keeping things secret. But in my mind, this doesn't meet, the duck pond agreement doesn't meet that standard. And so thank you for the discussion openly. Thank you for the work, Centrice, that you did to get permission to talk more about the content than you were able to last night. And I appreciate that, but I still don't think it needs to be a secret. Thank you all very much. I'm going home.
Thank you, Mr. Keough. Understanding the CIP is drafted out of ClearGov, my understanding is we do have some limitations on layout because of just design of ClearGov, but nice thing about having ClearGov as well is I think as we continue on, it will, have more and more information that as we continue in future years, we'll probably have better data and analytics and
I would say it's pretty, I think in terms of leveraging the tools to be able to present the data in various different formats is actually presented in this budget. You've got all of the different data charts. I would be interested in maybe talking a little bit more with Mr. Keogh and listening to some feedback that he so generously will provide, I'm sure, in a one-on-one. But there's the PDF that is probably more similar to what we once had when we produced our CIP and our budgets in Excel. We would, export from Excel and put into a Word document, save as a PDF, and then that is what we would present. The benefit, and I would say the one of the benefits and strengths of the program is that then there's the web-based version.
Right.
And the web-based version allows the citizen who's comfortable navigating, and I'll admit it's got tools and gadgets that even I am, still learning. But my 20-year-old and 15-year-old can become far more interested in a budget because of the technological features. But I would acknowledge that, some of those tools and benefits, you've got to navigate it in a way that, I still find myself learning. But the flexibility of being able to go right into an item, and you can click if you want the full narrative and a detailed summary of that proposed expenditure associated with the project, or if you just want to present and look at the layout based on the projects based on departments or the projects based on expenditure funds. These are all the what some might consider benefits of having the ClearGov tool. I would say the limitations were really more seen in the Excel document. I think the challenge is just what we're comfortable with. And admittedly, to some extent, while the features may have been more limited in the Excel document, it was easy to navigate and we all knew what to expect and where it was. And that was ultimately the benefit for those who navigated CIP and budgets before we implemented this. But feedback I hear from those that maybe just got more in tune with budget and following along, they find it to be a really flexible tool because of their comfort in learning the budget for the first time in the web version.
And I gotta give a lot of credit to staff, seeing links and other, even like attachments of like quotes and, that
was a new standard that we put forth this year, was bringing the quotes in so you had the option to pull it up.
Just kind of seeing where everything's coming from. Mr. Heller?
I was just gonna say, I'm just offering my time for those conversations, because I am a big proponent of one-pagers, distilling information down so that we can hand it to constituents, have a conversation.
Right.
So if there's any benefit of me supporting that, I'm happy to.
And I appreciate these guides, and, maybe, one thing Bill, hit tonight is maybe a possible expansion of the guide for next year.
Absolutely, we were preparing that.
Because, just having those page numbers, I think, has helped to really be able to just navigate through the PDF, so.
Yes, that is something that we'll have in our upcoming future agendas. We were preparing that right up until yesterday, so.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to help too, having used the previous Excel one, and I had to just open up an old one just to see, kind of what things I was missing from that. I prefer the new one now that I've learned it a little bit better, but I can see, some things that maybe would be helpful to incorporate.
And I think some of the changes too are we've implemented a new system to present the data, but we've also taken a lot of guidance and direction from our auditors, right? So we went from a DCD chart of accounts, and so there's been additional changes that we did to align with state requirements and or state guidance. So chart of accounts, for example, we once kind of just named our accounts however we thought made the most sense, and what would happen is for our auditors to properly conduct the audit, they would need to try to translate what we were, I don't know, we call it roads and something fun. I can't recall an exact account title, but what we did is we transferred them in to meet the standards that the auditors were requesting. And that's just one example. There were at least 3 or 4. For example, we had personnel and we had all these other items in our CIP previously, and the auditors were like, that's a false representation of what a true capital program plan is. Having revenues in there is also something that can be misleading if it's not already approved grants. And so while I think we all have our opinions and thoughts on what would be ideal, we are trying to align to what is being recommended and required at different state auditing GFOA practices.
I am comfortable removing all of my flags from police and hitting this at budget time.
Fair enough.
Second.
Okay. Then we are done.
So,
If there's consensus, I should look around and see if all board members agree.
Yeah, I didn't have any flags.
Yeah. I was gonna say that'll make my proposition of a recess even better.
That sounds like an adjournment.
That's my job.
Right.
Stay in your lane, bro.
Okay. So anything further we wanted to bring up on police while we have the lieutenant here?
Just a sincere thank you to you.
Yep.
And all the
Thank
officers out there, safety, appreciate it.
Yes.
Everything you do.
Madam Manager, you want to present next steps?
Next steps include, at the July 15th meeting, we'll bring back what we refer to as the draft capital improvement program, the draft 2026 to 2030 capital improvement plan for the board to review to confirm that the changes that were discussed at these special meetings were implemented. And then at that point, at the July 15th meeting following that review, we generally like to see the board then approve for authorization of legal advertisement to hold the public hearing on what would be the next meeting, which is August 5th. At the August 5th meeting is when the board is asked to hold the public hearing in accordance with the Home Rule Charter as required to give the public an opportunity to have comment prior to taking action to adopt the 2026 to 2030 capital improvement program plan. And that would conclude our CIP process.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, Ms. Stevens, your thoughts on item 7. Do we have a second? All right, we're adjourned. Have a good evening, folks.
The Center Region Active Adult Center is a vibrant, inclusive, and happening location designed for active adults, 55 years and over, to be social and participate in new experiences while also staying close to home. We promote healthy aging through our many activities and health forums, as well as lifelong learning through classes and social interaction that suit almost any lifestyle. Whether you prefer line dancing followed by a walk or a game of bridge and a meal, the center is sure to have something for you. Visit crpr.org for more info.
Attention nonprofits of Center County. CNET can help with your marketing needs. Twice a year, CNET offers PSA Days, a time when you can have an affordable, professional public service announcement video produced to fit your 21st century advertising needs. Choose your level of involvement. We can come to shoot video at the location of your choice, or you can provide us with images and language and come sit in while we edit. If you're too busy saving the world, leave all the work to our professional staff and simply give us guidance, feedback, and approval of the finished product. Choose a package that fits your needs. CNET's low pricing includes script support, graphics, professional video production, editing, and airtime for up to 1 year with the option to continue or make a new video at the end of the term. We have an easy, affordable solution for your nonprofit organization. Contact us today for more information at 814-238-5031.